What if I were to tell you that by taking a small amount of pocket change and investing into your home, that you would not only 5x your returns, but also transform your home into a high-end, breathtaking farmhouse? If you're new around here, my name's Noah, and today I'm going to show you how to make 6 cost-effective upgrades without turning your house upside down. Let's get into it. So what's the farmhouse trend? I feel like a lot of people have really gotten to know and love this trend. I personally have. It's been going on for a while now, and I don't see it going anywhere anytime soon. One of the things that really catches my eye is the natural wood aspect of it. The farmhouse trend really does rely on a lot of natural elements. So if you think like natural wood, stone, brick, or copper, metal, anything like that, there's a lot of that incorporated into this. If you've ever seen pictures of the farmhouse sort of layout or plan, you'll see a lot of white going on. So that usually is your background, and then you'll have some browns going on. So this would be your natural wood. So if you think about it, farmhouses back in the day when they were being built, people used what they had on hand, and they were very, very small. So white opens up the place. It makes it feel bigger than what it is. And by adding the wood in there, as in like trim pieces, like if you're ever doing crown molding or base molding, I like to do stained wood 1x4s or something like that. It really makes it pop. It makes things feel bigger than what they are, but it adds depth into it. It kind of it complements itself. And also there'll always be some sort of complementary color. This complementary color could be like a gray, a blue, or a green. So for the first thing I'm going to show you how to do is make homemade shiplap. I did this when we were renovating our home. It worked out really, really good, and it was super cheap to do. What I like to do is first things first, I'll measure out the square footage that I need, and I'll give myself about 10% extra just for mess ups. And I'll go to Lowe's or Home Depot, and I'll buy 1/4 inch Luan. Luan is basically engineered plywood that doesn't have any knots in it, so it's really good to use. It'll run about $30 a sheet. It's a 4x8 foot sheet, so you get 32 square feet. And what I'll do is I'll take it home and I'll rip it on my table saw. My width is going to be 5 7/8 wide. Reason why it's 5 7/8 is because I was trying to do 6-inch, but the width of the saw blade is going to be an eighth of an inch, so that's going to be something that you're going to have to account for, so that way you can get even cuts all the way through. So 5 7/8 really does work. Then I'll take it to a painting station. I'll get 2 gallons of flat white paint from Behr at Home Depot usually. This is usually for ceilings, but I'll roll it on with a 4 or 6-inch roller. And I'll usually do that about twice to make sure it dries in between coats. Then after that, I'll mark my studs where they're all at, and I will get my brad nailer out. I'll usually use about 1 inch to 1 1/4 inch brad nails, and I'll cut the sheet to place, my strip, and I'll just tack it onto the wall. It's super easy to do. It looks great. I'll also make sure there's a little gap in between layers. That way it does look like shiplap. It just looks phenomenal. When we were doing our lights for our home in our kitchen, because we did buy an older house. Older houses typically don't have that great of light. We had to make what I call runways in the light, or for our lights, because we had to run wire. I basically had to cut the ceiling and run our wire for each individual pop light. And we had what's called stipple. If you've ever heard of stipple, or if you have it in your home, we have it throughout our entire house. And it's pretty hard to replicate stipple once it's been messed with. It's basically wet drywall that's been stomped on, almost like with a broomstick on your ceiling. and it'll create these little patterns. So we tried everything we could to blend in where we had cut for our wiring, and we could not do it. So we had the crazy idea of running that shiplap on our ceiling, and it came out beautiful. So that's another really cool thing you can do. You can not only do it for a backsplash, but you could do it as an accent wall. You could do it as on your ceiling. You could really go far with this thing, and it is way easier than installing regular shiplap. All you got to do is just put it over the sheetrock and just nail it to your stud. So I did the math for it, and it came out to be around $1.09 a square foot, which is really cheap, especially if you're comparing it to regular backsplash prices. The second thing I'm going to talk about is a board and batten accent wall. These are really cool to do. Typically, you see them outside as siding for a house, especially farmhouses, but I've seen people bring them inside their homes. So this is something really cool to check out. So remember how I was talking earlier about complementary colors? This is one of the instances that you could use a complementary color. Say I had a blank wall that was just painted white, and I wanted to add some character to it. What I would do, I would pick a color that I want. So say, let's do a bluish gray maybe. And the cool thing about this is that you don't have to go all the way up the ceiling with it. You could go 2/3 of the wall, you could go half of the wall, whatever you want. And you could really get creative by adding almost like a mantle shelf to it, to hang pictures on, to hang memorabilia stuff on. You could really go crazy with this. So here's what you're going to do. If it was me doing it, I would measure my wall. So that way, say I want my top board to be at 60 inches off the ground. I would mark that across the wall, get my level and do it, make a line. And then I would paint that wall, that color, because the drywall is going to be kind of like your backsplash for it. It's going to be what you would typically use paneling for. But all you're doing is just building a case around the drywall to make it look like a picture frame almost. Then you're going to get some 1x4s. This is going to be your base molding and also your top layer. I would go ahead and paint all these boards before you put them up. That way you don't make any smudges on anything, that you don't smear anything up. It's just a lot cleaner that way. And make sure that they're properly dried beforehand. And go ahead and just liquid nail the back of them. Mark out where you want them beforehand, and go ahead and brad nail them. So next thing that you're going to do is you're going to get your 1x2s, and you're going to mark out where they're all going to go. Now you're not going to line up on your studs. Typically spacing is going to be somewhere around 19 inches or so, and you're going to liquid nail the back of them, and you're going to tack them in place with a brad nailer. And another thing, that if you want to go above and beyond, you can even do inner casing, almost like a fancy shoe molding that you can add to the inside of these squares. And that's really all it is. And if you want to make a shelf on it, you can do a 1x4 up top with some sort of bracketry to hold everything together. All in all, this is actually really cheap as well, because all you're just buying is wooden paint. It came out to be around $1 a square foot as well. So these are just super easy beginner things to do that doesn't take a whole lot of effort, and it doesn't flip the house upside down. You don't have to go cutting into anything. You don't have to go buy some expensive piece of equipment. All you really need is a brad nailer and a paintbrush or a paint roller. Now for number 3, what a lot of people don't think about is good lighting. I mentioned this earlier. A lot of older homes don't have that great of lighting. One way to fix this is replacing light fixtures, or go ahead and run new wiring like we did. If you're running new wiring, I would say put ample amount of lights down your walkways and your work areas, especially in your kitchen, and also above your sink and your refrigerator as well. These are all highly trafficked areas, and you want to make sure you can see what you're doing while you're there. Number 4, making a fake beam. This can be a really cool way about adding character into your home without doing anything major. All you gotta get is a couple 1x6s and 1x4s. Say, for instance, that I am working on a house and I want to put 3 fake beams in the living room. I'll divide that living room by 5 for my total length, so that way I have equal spacing on each side of the room. If you've ever heard of rough cut lumber, this would be a really good place to use it. You could check out Marketplace, find a local sawmill near you. All you gotta do is take one 1x6 and find your ceiling joist and mount it to it. I like to use 2.5-inch to 3-inch deck screws for this. So that way you have a really good base to work off of. You're going to put your 2 1x4s on the side and brad nail them in, and then finish the box with the other 1x6. If you're going to Lowe's and getting just the pine boards for this, that's fine. Just make sure if you're staining it, that you stain it all beforehand. One of the stains that I like to use is actually a mix of stains. Is Early American stain and honey stain. I like to mix them 50-50, and those are both from Minwax. I'll mix those together and I'll apply it and let it dry, of course. Number 5, making your own countertops. Now you might say, no, I don't want to make my own countertops. I don't have the equipment for it. I don't want to do any of that. That's okay too. And I'm going to show you why here in a second and how you can get around that. So when we were renovating our home, I wanted to do our countertops, but I just did not have the time for it. I've done them before. I've made a lot of custom countertops for people in the past, epoxy ones and all sorts of beautiful ones. But this time I just did not have the time. And we went to a liquidation place, a lumber liquidation place, and they were selling hardwood countertops that were unfinished. If you don't want to make your own countertops, go that route. They're cheaper. You can easily seal them and finish them yourself and cut them to size. And you can save a lot of money that way and come out with a really good product. But if you do want to make your own countertops, I'm going to show you how. Make sure that if you're getting your lumber from a hardwood supplier, make sure that it's kiln dried. This is one of the most critical things I can emphasize in this is make sure it's kiln dried. You do not want to work with wet wood. It will bend on you. It will split on you. It will do all sorts of things that you do not want it to do. So this is really important. I would also recommend doing a hardwood if you can. Pine and cypress I know are not hardwoods, but you can also do pine and cypress if you want. Just make sure that it has a really strong finish on it, kind of like an epoxy so that way you don't ding it up in the future. I would recommend using maple or hickory, pecan, white oak. I would stay away from red oak if you can. It looks beautiful, but unless it's in kind of like this table here where it's in 1-inch strips glued together. The reason being is because the way that red oak is, the grain pattern is super unstable unless it's in this sort of form, and it will crack on you and it will do all sorts of things that you do not want it to do. So that's just something to keep in mind. Also, another thing for when you're buying your lumber, make sure it is thicker than the finished size that you want. So say for me, I like a 2-inch finish size thickness. Might be buying something that's 2.25 inches thick. I would not go underneath 1.5 inches. That tends to get pretty thin, and whenever you're going to mount it to your cabinets, you can quite possibly drive a screw through it. So you kind of want to stay above 1.5 inches. If the hardwood supplier that you're buying it from has a planing option, by all means do it. Because really that's why you want to get your extra thickness, is because by the time you're done planing and by the time you're done sanding, it's going to be around that finished thickness. So definitely take them up on that if they have that as an offer. Another thing, if you know anybody with a joiner, it's basically making the edges flat so that way you have a good tight glue bond. Definitely see if they could give you a hand. That's, I would have to say, is one of the most difficult things in making countertops, at least for me because I don't own a joiner, making those seams line up correctly. You can do it with a hand plane. You just got to be careful with it. That's all. You gotta know what you're doing, and it can be tedious, but it is possible, and that's how they used to do it back in the day. So after you get your edges all squared away and it's planed down to the thickness that you want, go ahead and buy you a dowel rod jig. You could get this off of Amazon. You could get this at Lowe's. Typically, you're going to want to have the dowel rod jig that has the metal grommets in it. And these are like little metal plugs that after you drill the hole that you want for your dowel rods, you'll pop them in there, and they have this little metal point. And you'll use your rubber mallet and you'll pop the two boards together the way you want it, and it'll make an indentation for where your opposite hole is going to be. So this is a really handy tool. I would not shortcut it and try to do it by hand all by yourself, because the reason why you want dowel rods in your countertops is because it prevents it from flexing up and down or even side to side. It creates a tighter and stronger glue bond. Whenever I'm doing a countertop, I like to make sure that my dowel rods are within 2 inches of the edges, and then every 12 inches. I'll mark that all out beforehand, and after I'm done, I'll make sure that there's an ample amount of glue, and I will tighten it all together with my pipe clamps. And then I'll make sure it dries for at least 24 hours. So when I'm ready to come work on it again, I will sand everything down. I'll make sure all that glue is clean off of there, and I will usually take it from 60 grit all the way up to 220, maybe 400 if I'm really trying to get a polished product. Then I'll blow everything off to make sure it's clean. Then what I'll do is I will measure for where it's going, and I'll cut it the size. I'll cut out if there's a sink that needs to be put in the center of it, or just to length, and then I will finally finish it. And I'll usually use like an epoxy or a polyurethane, and I'm also trying out a oil and wax hardener. That's one of the things I've seen a lot of people use, and I'm also wanting to experiment with, because having a polyurethane and epoxy or an epoxy is not food grade safe, so that's one of the things you gotta watch out for. And then you'll just screw it in underneath the cabinets with shorter screws than what the thickness is. Number 6, a fireplace mantle. This is a really cool characteristic you can add into your farmhouse. It is often a focal point. I really like a good looking fireplace mantle, a beefy one. So like I said before, find a sawyer near you, find a sawmill near you. They'll cut this up for you, and try to make it 6 inches thick, and I like between 10 and 12 inches wide. This just makes for a better placeholder if you're going to put your TV up there, or if it's mounted on the wall, that's great too. But you can also put plenty of things up on the mantle if you want. What we did personally was we used the hidden bracket. It's basically you mount it to your wall. You can order it off of Amazon. You can do all this yourself, and it's the same process of polyurethaning with the countertops. I typically like to do 3 coats of polyurethane for any piece of furniture I'm doing, sometimes more. But that's a really cool way you can add value to your home. I actually had a sawmill, so when I did ours, I milled my own and I air dried it. Just make sure if it's air dried that it's like below 10% for moisture content. That's typically what your range that you want. But I did ours from my granddad. My granddad had a tree from Missouri as a maple tree, so one of the silver maples he had in his yard, and it was dying away. And I had cut it down, and I said, I got this new sawmill. I'm gonna try it out. So I milled up the mantelpiece and two uprights for it, and it came out beautifully. I like leaving the live edge on the mantelpiece. I think it adds a lot of character to it. Since the tree was beginning to die out, it had the beginning stages of rot on it, which is called spalting. Yes, spalting. So that's one of the really cool characteristics. If you do get a unique piece of wood, you can always say, oh, it has a story behind it. So when we were originally starting to renovate our home, there was a gas fireplace there, and it still is there today. It worked and everything, but it had this ugly green emerald slate all around it. It was just ugly. So I think that was one of the first things that we took out. Like it was heavy, it was ugly. I mean, there was nothing you could do with it. At the end of the remodel, we were thinking like, what in the world can we do to this fireplace to just give it some character? Because it was just white drywall around it. I knew I was going to put that fireplace up there, but it was still drying out at the time. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to mark out for where I want my fireplace, and I'm going to mark out where I want my uprights, because I had two uprights that were going to go on the side of it to hold it up, to make it look better. I got the idea while we were walking in Lowe's. We were down the tile aisle, and I said, I got plenty of construction adhesive at the house, because I was going to do like a tile. I was thinking some sort of tile or stone around it, and I was going to get that concrete board, and I was going to do all that. And I said, that seems like a lot of work, and I've already done a lot of work, and it's just a lot of money in the pile. But I had this idea of taking, they had a fabric mesh. This is for backsplashes, but they had little veneered stones glued to it, and they were all in squares. And I said, I'm just gonna get however many square feet I need. I'm gonna just squirt a little bit of construction adhesive, and I'm gonna glue this onto the drywall. By golly, it turned out beautiful. I had a little diamond wheel I could cut the stones with. I ripped it off the plastic mesh, and it turned out really good. So that's just one of the things that you can get really creative with your fireplaces. I like, if I had to do it again, I would have considered like a veneered brick, because this is a brick house. It's just something to complement it, and it makes it look really cool. So that's about everything I got for you today. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.